Right, greetings all, hope this finds you well as always. It's now time for the latest update from the machine shop at Gromont, where we're up to and what we're on with. So sit back and enjoy. Right, here's another quick update on that gear wheel for the cylinder boring gear that Barry's doing. You remember seeing the blank of steel that I'd fetched from Wilson's last week? Well, here it is, and it's pretty much ready to have some teeth cut onto it. Barry's turned that to size, he's bored the centre out, and then he set it up on this rotary table. He's doing it on this because the dividing head we have is, well, I'll just describe it as strange and Russian. It has a peculiar worm wheel arrangement in it, and it's a very strange, to get the number of teeth, it wasn't actually possible to do it with that. But we've got this rotary table, which Barry has modified so it'll take the catch plate and detent pin off another dividing head that he has. As you can see, he's made up that bronze sleeve and the bushing and whatnot to hold that. And so he's now worked out how he can set that up to divide it. The idea with these fingers on the catch plate here is I've forgotten the exact details of what he said to me, but it's one complete turn and then so many holes. And so the idea is you start at one finger, one complete turn, and then on to the second finger. All you've then got to do is just advance the fingers on again, and then rinse, repeat, another turn, and then on so many holes. So that's how he'll set it out to divide it. I've never actually seen a rotary table used with div plates like this, so I'm used to them just being degrees. And so then he's got the blank on here all ready to go. Holding it, now I'm particularly impressed with this. What he's done is, if you look down there, you'll be able to see there's a series of, there's 4 of them, they're sort of steel buttons. If you look underneath, you can also see the other end of them there. Well, they've got a big shoulder on them, so that gear blank is sat on that shoulder to hold it off the table. But what Barry's done is he's clamped those buttons down to the rotary table and then machined them in situ, just like you would say a soft jaws in a lathe chuck. So they are machined slightly to the diameter, which matches the internal diameter of here. And so all he had to do is do that and then drop this ring onto it and then just tie it down with these 4 clamps onto that central packer. And job's done. As I've said a couple of times now, I've never really got into gear cutting, and so I'm watching Barry's setup here with great interest. Hopefully the next time we see this, it'll start having some gear teeth cut on it. His idea for cutting them is he's going to set like effectively a fly cutter. He probably thinks he's probably going to have to do it in 3 passes. The first will rough the gear tooth out to an approximate profile and cut it to full depth. Then the second will cut effectively one side of the gear tooth, and then the third cutter will do the other side of the gear tooth. So you'll end up with the full tooth in the process. So there's the latest update on that, and I'm sure you'll agree that's turning out to be quite an interesting little project for him. I'm certainly watching and learning very closely indeed. Right, here we've got the spring hanger bolts that we saw last week, where Brian had threaded one of them. These, as I said last week, are for the bogey off 44806, and Brian's now threaded the other one, done an equally smashing job. So he's proved that first thread very definitely and emphatically wasn't a fluke. And then, if that wasn't enough, he's then gone on and threaded the 2 nuts to match. Because these nuts are matched to the bolt, it isn't really to a standard, it's just basically the nut must fit the bolt. But he's threaded those, done an absolutely super job. They're a lovely fit on the bolt, as you can see, really nice and smooth. And both of them, of course, absolutely lovely. So those are all ready to go. And then the last job he's done is, you'll see that cross hole that's through the bolt there. That's just for a split pin. This is a sort of belt braces and a wet bit of string safety measure. The idea is when these are on the bogey, if for some reason this spring, the nut vibrates loose, well, if there's a split pin through there, the nut can only unwind itself to the end. It can't then fall off and the whole shebang quietly fall apart with locus in motion. So there we go. There's another job for 806. Finished and ready to go. So they can go back into the bogey. So with a bit of luck, Sean can get the bogey reassembled next week, and then we can start thinking about getting the bogey back under the frames. But I'm really pleased how these have come out. Brian's done an absolutely smashing job on that threading. Really nice work. It's the N16. It threads beautifully with a bit of Treflex. And, well, he's definitely passed on that one. Lovely job. Right, as we saw last week, here's the last axle box for 4486's bogey, and it's finished. Both sides machined, and yeah, on the second take, I got it right. The issue, I actually found what had thrown me off last time. The surface I'd used to align it, which was that upper edge here, is actually quite badly distorted. It's slightly deceptive because you don't actually realise it until you run a clock along it. But that was the issue I made, that's why I was screwed up, and it's now sorted, finished, and ready to go. So there we are, that can go back onto the bogey, and I think that's the last job at the moment for 806 that's done. Right, and then the last bit we've got are these little beasties, which are a request from Armstrong oilers, which Brian has rattled out. We've also got this lump as well, which is sort of part of it, and I'll come to that in a minute. What these things are is they're part of a lubricator pad frame. These pegs locate into part of the frame, and they then serve to stop the oil pad moving within the axle box. Now what we have is we have this plate here, which is made of spring steel. Armstrong's already provided these, and then these spigots go into that frame there, and so they locate. We have here, produced by Brian on cue, a sample of the pad here. You can see there's the oil pad here, the main spring frame here, and then this part may look familiar because, well, there it is. And so what we've been asked to do is, I mean, as it sits now, this thing is actually upside down. Normally it would sit in the axle box like that. And so what we've been asked to do is, can we make up a batch of these spigots so that they have spares in stock for future orders? And so we've done them. Now, they will be secured into this piece of spring steel, spot welds, and that's where this comes in. The idea of this is a simple jig, so that when the spigot is put into the plate, the whole lot is then dropped into the jig. That jig will then ensure that that plate is absolutely square to the spigot, and also, because Brian's machined it to be exactly the right length, when that peg is pushed down all the way into the bottom of that jig, it's absolutely flush with the top of the plate. So somebody can just stuff them in, stuff a plate on, quick bit dab a weld, and bingo, job's done. So there we go, that's another little job that's been rattled off, and just shows the variety of stuff we tackle. So anyway, folks, there's the update for this week. I hope you found it educational, informative as always. Now take care, and I'll see you around.